All right. Hi, everyone. We will be debating the topic of service delivery for transition age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. Our members include Christina Schaefer.
Hi.
Alyssa Buford.
Hi.
Erica Waltner.
Hi.
Justin Tuttle.
Hello.
And myself, Darcy Johnson. The transition age is the time when individuals reach the end of their formal schooling. For individuals with disabilities, this is typically ages 18 to 21. Self-sufficiency and independence are critical values in today's society. Individuals with disability are often slighted when it comes to achieving independence, as there is a lack of resources and funding available for day programs. Because of this, individuals with disabilities are oftentimes unable to make a decision based on post-school opportunities. Contradictory, many providers of these day programs, as well as employment providers, are faced with issues such as liability. In addition to laws protecting those with disabilities, there are compliance codes formulated by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, the BACB, that BAs are required to comply with. We will be arguing both sides of this topic. One side will be in favor of independence and self-sufficiency, which will be Justin Tuttle and Christina Schaefer, while the other side is promoting awareness of possible liabilities, which will be Erica Waltner and Alyssa Buford. And I myself will be the moderator.
Service providers striving to meet standards for habilitation and the pressure to achieve predetermined criteria to obtain funding leads to the compromise of personal liberties of individuals with disabilities and can deny individuals their basic human rights to exercise choice. The issue of equality and human rights is of great significance and is a current hot-button issue with the media. Not only is the treatment of all individuals highly scrutinized, but the demand for proper treatment of individuals with special needs is even more so part of our culture. As a result of the public forum in which we all now operate, service providers are under pressure more than ever to adhere to curriculum guidelines designed to promote habilitation. Unfortunately, this does not always take into consideration the preference of the client. As the ultimate goal is to teach self-sufficiency and promote independence, some service providers, under the pretense of a pursuit towards effective habilitation, maintain a great deal of control over the lives of their clients with autism and other developmental disabilities. Personal liberties can be compromised by service providers motivated to meet standards for habilitation, to be cost-effective to satisfy parents, board members, and school administrators, or those with their own best interest in mind often choose habilitative goals without consideration for the client's wants. Some professionals may choose the client's vocational setting based upon their own interests, impose inflexible daily activity schedules, and/or restrict access to preferred activities. The choices made by the service provider may indeed promote habilitation, but these choices may not reflect the client's preferences. Even if they do reflect the client's preferences, the reinforcing qualities are far less effective when activities are imposed and choice was not provided. Habilitation involves teaching the skills needed to live as independently as possible. It's the skill of knowing how to make choices that is the key issue, and not the argument based upon the content of the decisions made. Following the initial core ethical principle of do no harm, the next responsibility of behavior analysts is to respect the autonomy of the client. It is our responsibility to provide individuals with disabilities the best possible treatment to promote self-sufficiency and independence and improve quality of life. Not only are we required to strive for the optimal financial and academic outcomes for our clients, but we are required to do so according to the BACB Code of Ethics. BACB Code of Ethics 4.03a, behavior analysts must tailor behavior change programs to the unique behaviors, environmental variables, assessment results, and goals of each client. meaning that it is our right and responsibility to adapt programs to meet the individual needs of our clients. This at times includes teaching independence, a skill which requires a person to recognize situations that require a choice to be made and to know how to make choices based on preference. BACB Code of Ethics 4.07b. If environmental conditions hinder implementation of a behavior change program, behavior analysts seek to eliminate the environmental constraints or identify in writing the obstacles to do so. In this case, this pertains to the BCBA upholding what is right for the client as deemed by a team of professionals who know the individual and not adhering to regulations made by bureaucrats or politicians. If it is deemed in the best interest of the client to exercise choice, and you find that they are in a situation in which this is not an option, action must be taken to remedy the situation. The most compelling argument in favor of allowing the right to choose is that legislation guarantees it. Wyatt versus Stickney, 1971, determined that citizens with developmental disabilities have a right to receive such individual habilitation as will give each of them a realistic opportunity to lead a more useful and meaningful life and to return to society. On the basis of this ruling, the courts set minimum standards that included individualized application plans, a humane physical environment, and assurance of enough qualified staff to administer adequate treatment. Not only has legislation mandated habilitation, but most laws make funding contingent on compliance with specific abilities. Possible unexpected effects, however, may be the compromise of clients' personal liberties. People with developmental disabilities are guaranteed the same basic rights as other citizens of the same country and same age. This does not only assert that clients have the right to make choices, but require the staff provide the opportunities for choice. In a legal context, personal liberties include freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the other rights guaranteed by the Constitution. In the case of Doe versus Bolton, 1973, Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas discussed the right to be left alone, and including the privilege of an individual to plan his own affairs, to shape his own life as he thinks best, do what he pleases, go where he pleases, freedom from bodily restraint or compulsion, freedom to walk, stroll, or loaf. This legal conceptualization of personal liberty implies that people should have a variety of available options to be free from coercion when choosing between options. Some of the ways in which personal liberties may be compromised is that the client may have little to no input in decision-making regarding their priority treatment goals or on the procedures used in order to reach them. Teachers or staff with no regard for the client's preference or past learning history in the area, and or choice making is not often taught or opportunities for choice are not often given. The pressure to meet regulatory standards may cause some service providers to put too much emphasis on quantity and scheduling of habilitative activities. In fact, many service agencies are required to implement hour-by-hour daily schedules, and flexible scheduling often prohibits opportunities for choice. For instance, clients may not be allowed to choose the order or timing of activities, or may be discouraged from taking breaks or from choosing activities that are not scheduled. Service providers may choose the client's attire or plan client's meals. Access to leisure materials may be restricted until scheduled leisure times. Furthermore, the pressure to please funding agencies, parents, and other consumers may compel direct care staff and teachers to put on a show when observers are present. People should be allowed to exercise as much choice as their abilities allow, whether it involves expressing simple preferences or weighing the disadvantages or advantages of several options during complex decision-making. Even a person with profound developmental disabilities can choose which program they prefer to watch, what to eat for a snack, or whether to take a bath instead of a shower. The ability of a client to exercise choice also prepares them to exist as a member of a society where decision-making is expected and required. As a result of striving to live a more normalized lifestyle, learning to live as other community members do is quite important.
The pursuit of self-sufficiency and independence is highly valued in our society and is reflected in many legislative laws and funding initiatives associated with individuals with disabilities. Habilitation, the teaching of skills needed to live as independently as possible, is a predetermined requirement to achieve, and as a result, service providers are concerned with issues related to liability in service provision. Not meeting requirements to maintain funding ultimately is not in the best interest of the clientele. The BACB Code of Ethics 1.04e states, if behavior analysts' ethical responsibilities conflict with law or any policy of an organization with which they are affiliated, behavior analysts make known their commitment to this code and take steps to resolve the conflict in a responsible manner in accordance to law. The term law can often hold a negative connotation and be thought of as restricting. In actuality, these laws are in place to ensure the right to ethical treatment. So, instead of looking at government regulation as restrictive, it is important to look at this regulation as a means of ensuring that every individual has access to supports and treatments that will help them thrive, live independently, and as freely as possible. The ADA was enacted in order to fight discrimination in the workforce and promote opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Section 12,101A of the ADA finds that physical or mental disabilities in no way diminish a person's right to fully participate in all aspects of society. Yet many people with physical or mental disabilities have been precluded from doing so because of discrimination. Others who have a record of disability or are regarded as having a disability also have been subjected to discrimination. Historically, society has tended to isolate and segregate individuals with disabilities, and despite some improvements, such forms of discrimination against individuals with disabilities continue to be a serious and pervasive social problem. Discrimination against individuals with disabilities persists in such critical areas as employment, housing, public accommodations, education, transportation, communication, recreation, institutionalization, health services, voting, and access to public services. According to Code 1.01, behavior analysts must utilize scientific knowledge when making decisions about service provision. This knowledge allows for decisions to be made in the best interest of the client. Research supports the benefit of structured day services to outcomes for adults with disabilities. Enrolling an individual in a day service program or providing them with specific services does not in any way take away a person's right to choose. It is helping to place them into an environment in which they can be the most successful. Choices and input of clients are always taken into account when placement is being discussed. Not doing this would be unethical, and this is why there are laws that support and protect individuals' right to ethical treatment. Providing the best ethical treatment to empower individuals with disabilities is key. This information is in compliance with Code 2.05, Rights and Prerogatives of Clients. The analyst holds an important responsibility to serve the client with the most current knowledge as well as protect the client's rights. In addition to this, clients have a right to effective treatment as outlined in Code 2.09. Behavior analysts must advocate for the most effective treatments that benefit the client and society, both short and long term. The personal liberties of individuals with disabilities must be protected by service providers. It is our responsibility to meet the standards for habilitation in order to ensure that we meet the needs of the individuals with disabilities. The individuals participate in annual IHP or ELP meetings that ensure that the treatment plan, schedules, and goals are completely person-centered. This is mandated by the regulations that oversee day services for adults with disabilities. It is without this regulation that staff and administration needs are allowed to be the priority of scheduling activities. Service providers are required to account for their actions, not the actions of the individuals, in pre-designated intervals, usually 15 minutes. Periods. This ensures that the opportunity for activities and programming is available for the individuals. It does not mandate that they participate in one activity over another. As a matter of fact, the refusal to participate also is documented, and multiple refusals trigger the persons they serve.
The BCBA Code of Ethics supports the right for individuals with disabilities to have the same choices as individuals the same age as them. The code that supports this is 2.098. Clients have a right to effective treatment. Behavior analysts always have the obligation to advocate for and educate the client about scientifically supported, most effective treatment procedures. Meaning that if the individual is able to do something independently and in a safe manner, then they should be able to do so with the behavior analyst support. Allowing someone to make a choice also meets the ethics principles of respecting autonomy and according dignity. Respecting autonomy is addressed in this argument because it is helping the client become as independent as possible, and according dignity is addressed to make sure the client is treated with respect and have their own values. Habilitation and the right to choose should not be conflicting goals. For Banner and colleagues, habilitation includes teaching individuals the skills they need to live as independently as they can. Teaching an individual to make choices allows them to have more freedom and live more independently. When a person is not given opportunities to live more independently, their personal liberties can be interfered with. Some ways in which this happens is the individual is not given the opportunity to give input on the decisions that are being made on their treatment goals. The individual is not taught to make choices, or they are not presented with opportunities to make choices. By allowing individuals to have choices, they are receiving more responsibility, which in turn helps to improve their performance because they feel they are more responsible. Findings from experimental research provide additional support for personal liberties. Researchers have found that individuals frequently prefer situations in which they have choice, and that choice rarely proves detrimental to the individual and may, in fact, be beneficial. Research relevant to this issue includes the effect of choice on responses to aversive stimuli, preference, participation, problem behavior, and task performance. In studies that examine preference for choice, subjects were concurrently presented with two situations that were equivalent, except that one choice was made available in only one of the situations. Individuals most frequently choose the situation which choice was made available. For example, children choose to participate in tasks in which they had a choice of reinforcers more often than when the experimenter chose the same reinforcer for them. Adolescents with developmental disabilities who engage in stereotypic rocking most frequently choose a chair that they could rock themselves in over a chair rocked by the researcher at the same time. Regarding effects of choice and responses to aversive stimuli, studies show that subjects who could control an aspect of an aversive situation reported less discomfort and had a less extreme reaction when subjects who received the same stimulus but had no control over it. Additionally, research shows that patients given a choice of two medical treatments are less likely to be depressed or anxious when patients are assigned the same treatment. Regarding the effects of choice on participation, individuals appear to participate more in activities when opportunities for choice are available. Adolescents participate in group decision-making more often when they are determined consequences than when the parents determine the consequences. People who choose their own exercises have better attendance at fitness clubs than people who are assigned the same exercises. Students who choose to participate in what their reward should be participate more often in activities than those who are not given a choice. The effects of choice and problem behavior show that problem behaviors appear to be exhibited less frequently when the behavior has opportunities for choice. Autistic children exhibited fewer problem behaviors when they had a choice of task, material, and reinforcers than when the therapist made those choices for them. They demonstrated less social avoidance when engaged in tasks of their own preference. Students with a severe developmental disability demonstrated less deviant behavior and greater compliance when they could control the pace of instructions during vocational tasks. As far as the effects of choice on task performance are concerned, opportunities to take choices in the situation may in fact improve performance. A study was done where children who were given a choice of treatments for recalling or recognizing words performed better than other children who received the same treatment but had not chosen it. Research indicates that individuals frequently prefer situations in which they have choice. It also seems that choice may have benefits for the individual, especially in increasing participation and reducing problem behaviors. More research is needed to determine the conditions under which choice may have the most benefit for people with developmental disabilities.
It is our responsibility through the enforcement of habilitation codes and regulations to provide opportunities for personal growth and to improve the quality of life for individuals with developmental disabilities. Although ethical codes look wonderful on paper, without specific standards, providers will not be held accountable for following through on appropriate and ethical treatment. Enforcement of these codes through licensing standards ensures that individuals do not lose access to services, funding, and treatment due to lack of regulations and accountability by the provider agencies. In the case of Wyatt versus Stickney, filed in 1970, it illustrates the need for regulations for vulnerable populations. On March 12, 1971, the Alabama state judge ordered that individuals confined to institutional settings had a right to therapeutic treatment, not only custodial care. Although adults with disabilities are not always kept in facilities against their will, they are restricted from participating as full members of the community. One of the core aspects defined in applied behavior analysis in Bear, Wolf, and Risley is that the treatment is meaningful to the individual and to society. How different is this from institutional settings that have One of the core aspects defining behavior analysis in Bear, Wolf, and Risley is that treatment is meaningful to the individual and society. Merely warehousing individuals in a social program with no opportunity for learning and growth does them a great disservice. How is this different from the institutional settings that so many have fought to dismantle? The focus on therapeutic day programming should be first and foremost to improve the quality of life for the individuals served. This is the most fundamental measure of effective evidence-based treatment. Quality of life measures are directly impacted by the type of day program services that the individual receives. Bear, Brown, Akindi, and Rapley in 2010 compared the quality of life measures of individuals in traditional day programs, employment enterprises, supported employment, and their non-disabled peers. They noted significant differences for QOL scores between supported employees and enterprise workers and those in traditional day programs. There were increased levels of health, productivity, place in the community, and emotional well-being for the individuals in employment enterprises or supported employment. There were also significantly higher quality of life scores for employed adults with disabilities on the overall objective and subjective measures. The results of scores compared to workers with disabilities shows clear disparity in the quality of life between traditional day program recipients and their employed cohorts. As a matter of fact, those in supported employment reported higher total subjective quality of life than even their non-disabled peers. In conclusion, without appropriate and regulated services, individuals with disabilities face a future of custodial care with little concern for their future in terms of self-sufficiency or quality of life. Services must be provided that protect the individual's right to habilitation and evidence-based treatment. Both legislation and ethical principles support the right to therapeutic treatment based on scientific research. We are long past the age of warehousing individuals in settings that focus on financial convenience instead of treatment. Without regulation, this cost-effective model will become the status quo as it was in the 70s. Instead, we have an overwhelming responsibility to provide individualized care that promotes the independence and well-being of individuals with disabilities.
Next, we will have a question and answer section. Okay, so for the affirmative side, I understand that you want to protect the rights and choices of individuals with disabilities, but in the current fee-for-service environment, how would you assure accountability and quality service without clearly defined habilitation goals?
One thing that really makes individuals with autism unique is they usually have something they are very interested in. This becomes a strength of theirs, though at times may become an obsession. In order to assure quality service and accountability, we can allow the individual to work in an area that is a strength of theirs. Also, research has shown that if the individual is given a choice, they are more likely to perform better as they feel they have more responsibility over what they are doing.
With the focus that you place upon regimented habilitation services, how would you ensure that individual rights and preferences are protected within these guidelines? Could you diminish choice in the name of evidence-based treatment?
It is actually the ability to make choices that these regulations protect. If the agencies providing day services are not held accountable for the care they provide, if there is not a standard to follow and abide by, then we as behavior analysts have failed to follow one of the most basic ethical codes. Code 1.01, we need to provide evidence-based treatments. If you put a group of individuals in a room with nothing but crayons, paper, and a TV set, it is easy to say that all they want to do is color and watch TV. How is that supporting personal choice or autonomy? You are actually restricting their opportunities. The regulations and standards that require documented care and progress is what prevent day service providers from warehousing individuals with disabilities in the cheapest and easiest manner possible. The lack of regulation is what would create these truly restrictive practices.
It seems that both sides are equally concerned with the quality of life of individuals with disabilities. Is there a way to collaborate to create a system that will support the ideals represented by both sides? Both sides can agree that they wish to see the best outcome for individuals with disabilities. Combining empowerment while still having regulations can be achieved, as mentioned before, by allowing individuals to choose a job or living situation of their choice. Promoting autonomy and self-sufficiency is crucial to all individuals in society, as these rights are protected by law. That being said, regulations need to be taken into consideration when allowing individuals their choice. In conclusion, independence and self-sufficiency is crucial to all individuals with disabilities or not. Regulations and codes of ethics must be followed regarding jobs and habilitation. Some individuals with disabilities are not capable of making such decisions, therefore rely on the help of family and caretakers. Quality of life should always be considered when deciding one's future plan. As mentioned before, both sides can come to an agreement and that they wish to see the best outcome possible for individuals with disabilities regarding what lies ahead after schooling is complete. Thanks for viewing our presentation, and that's all.